Oh, hello there. Yes, Sunday morning. Somewhat tired. I've just sort of finished a 12-hour shift and will probably be in need of crashing out for an hour or two quite soon. There was a lot of traffic on Twitter yesterday about the decision, possibly, to deport people in this country to Rwanda. And I thought it'd be worthwhile because having discussions with people on Twitter, a lot of people are very, very unhappy with the notion of legal definitions of things being different from what they want them to be. And they will often use terms and phraseology which they don't know exactly what the words mean, and other things which are legally meaningless. And I want to look at refugees, asylum seekers and migrants today, and I want to touch on notions of illegality and lefty lawyers, which a lot of people seem to sort of muddy a lot of different waters here because they have no legal understanding at all. So, first up, from the Amnesty International website, who is a refugee? It's a good place to start. A refugee is a person who has fled their own country because they're at risk of serious human rights violations and persecution there. The risks to their safety in life were so great they felt they had no choice but to leave and seek safety outside their own country because their own government cannot or will not protect them from these dangers. Refugees have a right to international protection. Yes, a refugee is someone who may well be at risk of their life, or at least believes that that's the case. Now, a lot of people are unhappy with that notion because they say, I don't really believe them. It's beside the point. That's not a legal definition. Until we've ascertained whether or not a person is at risk, then that's where that changes into something else. People may come here as refugees. They may come here as asylum seekers, people seeking asylum. So let's look at that one, shall we? An asylum seeker is a person who has left their country and is seeking protection from persecution and serious human rights violations in another country, but who hasn't legally been recognised as a refugee and is waiting to receive a decision on their asylum claim. Seeking asylum is a human right. This means everyone should be allowed to enter another country to seek asylum. Yes. Now, that's the bit, in many ways, that people don't like, okay? So, refugee has a certain legal status, asylum seeker has another legal status, but you can go to a country and seek asylum, okay? I can get on a plane or a boat or a train today, if I can get through passport control, and seek asylum in France if I so desire. I don't have to give the French notification I'm coming. A lot of people don't like that. Once again, it's like, well, why do they come here and seek asylum? And it's like, well, they can only seek asylum once they're here. Yeah, that's kind of the way that one works. And again, it's one of those legal things that people kind of go, well, I'm not happy with that. Well, sorry, we've signed international treaties. We could decide to leave international treaties, and I'll come on to that in a minute or two. The third one is simply a migrant, and as Amnesty International say, there is no legally accepted legal definition of a migrant. Like most agencies and organisations, we at Amnesty International understand migrants to be people staying outside their country of origin who are not asylum seekers or refugees. Yeah. There's a lot of migrants in this country. They came here through perfectly legal channels, and they legally are allowed to stay here. Some of them become British citizens, in which case they are still migrants, if you like, but they are British citizens. There are various things there. Again, people don't like that idea. People have this notion of moving to a country easily because it's a cushy place to be. They don't like it, the fact that people might just come here because, they get offered a job or something. Mixed in with all of this thing, all of these legal terms that people don't like the meaning of, is this notion of lefty lawyers. They're bad, aren't they? People who deliberately use the law to have a go at the government, effectively, and protect the wrong kind of people. Now, the flaw with this, which you might notice, is that an awful lot of lawyers do protect, if you like, the wrong type of people because they're on the defence. We don't call them necessarily lefty lawyers, but it's become one of those kind of go-to phrases. Today in the Daily Mail, there's one of those kind of long-winded hit jobs that they're doing on lawyers because some of them have ties to the Labour Party. Yeah, you know, and some of them went to schools and they wrote something that seemed a bit left wing and it was bad. It's one of those hit job parts which they do. This notion of a cabal, always a cabal, isn't it, of people who are going to stop the government in its tracks, and poor old Priti Patel can't do anything about it. And when you boil all of that away, what you're left with is the law. Yeah? These are people that are interpreting the law as lawyers do. That's the reason we employ them. They're not necessarily people who have a particular political agenda, but it's just easier to pretend that they do, isn't it? Yeah. And this notion of not protecting the right people is always an intriguing one, because I've yet to see anyone suggest that anyone from the Ukraine should be shunted onto a plane and taken to Rwanda. We always mean various people that we don't necessarily like, which is a phrase for people usually with a darker colour skin than the majority of the British population, on a blunt level. Yes, and then we get to the phrase illegals. There is no such thing as an illegal. There is no such thing as an illegal immigrant. There's no such thing as an illegal asylum seeker or an illegal refugee. Okay? It doesn't mean anything legally, other than it's against the law. But bearing in mind what I've said before about when you turn up in a country, for example, seeking asylum, you can't be an illegal asylum seeker. You are either an asylum seeker, or you are somebody who's been granted refugee status, or you are somebody who hasn't been granted refugee status. You're not illegal. But this is used in such a sloppy shorthand as a way of demonising certain groups of people, always certain groups of people, likely to be a little bit darker than the average Englishman, or woman for that matter, once again, you know, just to tiptoe around the R word, because that's really what we're dealing with. So it becomes this very, very lazy shorthand, and people therefore get indignant about it. It's the whole point with it, okay? Well, it's illegal, isn't it? No. It must be illegal, because I can't just go to Spain, can I? Yes. People don't know that. Yes. Anyway, finally, you know, if you think all of this is a bit ridiculous and I'm just being a stupid lefty going on about semantics, well, there's a lot of people in Spain at the moment that are having to pack up their bags and leave because they've overstayed the 90-day length of stay that they're allowed to be in the EU. Since Brexit, they're having to come home in droves, and an awful lot of them voted for Brexit because, you know, it was important that we got rid of those illegals. And they find themselves on the bitter end of these kind of rules that they themselves were very keen on. It's just that, you know, they tend to have the same colour skin as the majority population of England. Anyway, hopefully that makes things somewhat clearer. It does annoy me when people argue the toss about the law when they don't know what it is. Please don't argue the toss about something you don't know what it is. And please, certainly with someone like me, because I teach this stuff for a living, don't argue the toss with me either. All right? It's not really worthwhile. It won't stop them, though. Well, it's still illegal, isn't it? Still illegal. Still illegal. No. Anyway, have a lovely Sunday. No doubt speak to you during the week.